Welcome back to Between the Before and After, a podcast about the stories that shape us. I'm your host, Coach John McLaren, and each episode I bring you an inspiring guest with a moving story that shines a light on the power of the human spirit. I'm excited to share this story with you, so let's dive in. All right, I think this is the first time I've had a country music recording artist on the show, so it's an absolute pleasure to welcome Amy Scruggs to the show today. How are you doing?
Jonathan, I'm great. Well, I feel honored. I'm the first. I hope that it's a great experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think today we'll get a little bit of a look into the music scene from a perspective that maybe others haven't really seen, because you've been an industry insider for a number of years, in addition to some of the other ventures that you have going on. And so for our listeners who are just starting out, where are you at presently, and kind of what are you up to?
Well, I can definitely give you the Cliff Note introduction to that. And in a nutshell, after 20 years with experience in business and sales and running sales teams, communications with those sales teams, traveling and touring as a recording artist, 5 years as a host of a national TV show, I am so proud to have combined all of those ingredients for what I'm able to do now. And that's media coaching, effective communications coaching to help professionals, nonprofits, businesses, individuals level up how they present themselves, how they deliver their message, and hopefully impacting their business in the community. And that's what I do today, along with my new record that came out the first of last year that's still out on radio and doing quite well. So thank you.
Didn't you have a recent single, What If It All Goes Well? Is that one of your recent ones?
What If It All Goes Right? That was really my signature of 2022. It came out in January last year, 2022, and I was very thankful that it did well. It charted around the globe. It did well on Music Row charts here in the US, and it was also chosen for the New York Times Bestseller summer list. And I was really excited and honored to see that happen, because as we're going to discuss in the journey, something like that was just that moment waiting to happen. And I feel like it was the giant life hug that deserved to be out there, so that message can now spread to everybody else.
I love that, a life hug. That's actually a great term there. And you've spent a number of years in the recording industry, among other things, and also you're able to combine all of these ingredients. So there's something wonderful about being at this stage in life where you have you still have some youth on your side, but you have.
I'm only 25, just in case you're wondering. Yes.
Right. Yeah, of course. And we just sort of celebrate the anniversary of your 25th birthday every year. Is that how it goes?
Exactly.
Yeah. So you've managed to put all these wonderful sort of ingredients together to really help other people who want to put their message out there in a way that's polished, professionally well received by audiences. Is that right?
It is, because everyone has a story and a message. We all have a message about what we've been through. Either we're inspiring somebody, we're educating somebody, we're helping support a business, maybe as a support staff, but everybody is sharing a message about something at some point. And how we deliver that so that it actually is received is where the difference lies. And I love when I'm able to work with someone or a team and have them go, I see the difference. Do you see how that landed? Do you see how they received what you were saying? That's when you know you've made a powerful impact.
I absolutely love stories. There's a great book that I'm going to give a bit of a plug to, and it's written by a lady named Margot Lightman is her name, and she wrote a book called Long Story Short. And it's a really easy read, but it is actually about storytelling. Yes. And I've been so fascinated by this. I'm going through, and there's some little exercises and things that you can do in there as well. And I was actually amazed, not just like, I don't just have like one story, but the number of stories that come up as you go back, you start reflecting. It's like, wow. And if you deliver them well, like they are really entertaining. And so I'm finding I have a great passion for storytelling. And of course, today we're exploring your story, because people see the wonderful, polished, accomplished professional behind the microphone today, but we know that it wasn't an easy journey to get there. And there's definitely been some ups and downs along the way. And I think showing people a little bit of insight into the highs and lows of that journey gives people a different level of appreciation for you being where you are today. And so let's go back. Let's rewind the clock a little bit here to some of the early years. Where did you start out?
I grew up in Southern California, so I'm still in San Diego. So my entire life in Southern California, and wonderful middle-class family. I went to a private Christian school for middle school and high school. I have one brother, and music was my life. I started singing at the age of 3. I was playing piano at the age of 3. And so music was a huge component. Now, the funny part of this is that my dad raised 2 sons, and I only have one brother.
Right.
So that means that I was on the soccer field and the baseball field. They really wanted those 2
Yeah.
athletes, and I was saying, "No, no, no, I wanna do music." So there was a little bit of that battle there, but I can still clean a pool, fix a car, and throw a mean softball. So I'm thankful for the lessons and what I learned in that, but
Yeah.
there was definitely that drive that was going that direction, but I knew I was meant to sing, speak, perform, and that I had a different path.
I love that. Do people, assume because, your music journey is kind of taking you to the country music industry that you, are in or have been in Tennessee, or have you spent any time living in that part of the world, or have you always been located in California?
I do get asked that a lot, whether I immersed myself into Tennessee. I can say yes and no a little bit. I never was able to actually live there. I would go visit for some extended periods when I was first crafting my music and my first trips to Nashville in 2004. I would go and spend a few weeks, then back home, then spend a few weeks. It was difficult to juggle because I always had my sales career and my business career that was
Mm.
walking alongside that, plus children. So that wasn't
Yeah,
always
yeah.
easy to be able to do that. But Southern California is really the root. That's where I am. I have incredible, amazing friendships and connections in
Yeah.
Tennessee and in Nashville, though, because once you build a true relationship and someone that walks alongside you or believes in you, if you nurture and handle that right, they will always be there. And for me, that's the relationships that I have 20 years deep in Nashville. I can fly in tomorrow and I've got 6 different places that I would go first and want to hug a lot of people. And so that's what's very
Yeah,
special to me. Yes, I feel like I'm still a resident, a part of Nashville, but yes, I live in Southern California, and that's the
yeah,
beauty of what we're able to do.
yeah, and, you said your dad raised a couple of boys, which is absolutely fantastic. I think we should, we should, maybe give young women the experience of doing some of these things as well, instead of assuming that they A, can't do it, or B, don't want to. Maybe they don't want to do it, but I think that's absolutely fantastic. You got to do that, and so you were pretty sure from a young age that you were going to go into the music industry. You're going into singing in some way.
Mhm.
As a youngster, did you perform at all? I mean, were you like a child actor or anything like that, or where did your
Yes,
music journey
child
take you?
singer, definitely. I was
Okay.
in the church choirs, and then in
Yeah.
the school choirs, I always was in the ensemble and the a cappella groups, and I took piano lessons and voice lessons. So I was immersed in music in some way my entire life. And if you had asked me at 5 who I was gonna be when I grew up, my answer would have been Barbara Mandrell. I just knew it was country.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
last
Yeah.
name chose that. When you have a last name of Scruggs, your genre is chosen for you. So I knew, okay,
Yeah.
let's stay on brand.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
stay on brand. But I knew that that's what I was going to do. And my dad and I are very close, and country music was very special to him. He raised me on Johnny Cash, and so there was just
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
experience and that bond there that was just really in my DNA.
I think country music in particular as a genre is really about storytelling as well, and so it's a natural fit. Were there any other genres that you kind of wanted to explore or have explored?
I've loved sales. That learning to work with professionals, learning to go out and hustle and ask for the business and thrive in that was definitely a learned skill, but I enjoyed it. So I think it was naturally in there for me to want to network, connect with
Hmm.
individuals, go accomplish something, taking limits off versus just a salaried job. I knew, no, I want to know that I can make more. That if I go and
Yeah.
apply more of myself or make new relationships, that means that there's more opportunity. So I think I knew instinctively I wanted to work in a space that provided opportunity and more opportunities to find more opportunities. And my career to this
Yeah.
day is a prime example of that.
Yeah, I think there's something in those with an entrepreneurial spirit. We recognize that we don't we want to be rewarded for the hard work that we put in,
Mhm.
as opposed to just collecting the same salary whether or not we work hard or
Yes.
not. And so, and it's just part of human nature, just to be incentivized. Hey, if you work
Yes.
hard, you get something from it.
And I'll give you an example. When I was 8 years old, I decided to put on a show in the backyard, and I
Okay.
required that my friends in the neighborhood learn to be backup singers and dancers. And then we wrote
Wow.
up paper flyers, walked them all around, and charged my neighborhood friends a quarter to come in and watch us do this show. And it was only one song. I'm a one-song
Yeah.
person
Yeah.
here. So I
Right. Right.
really
Right.
knew then that there was money in this, and I was gonna figure it out.
That's amazing. I was thinking about, well, a mutual acquaintance, Alex Sanfilippo, who I think you know
Yes,
him well as well, and he was on
yes,
episode
very well.
100, and he started out selling golf balls when he was 10. And
Love
he,
it.
he said his brain just like he just really fell in love with this idea of like profit and margins and figuring out these numbers. So he knew
Yes,
right then that his brain kind of saw the world a little bit differently. So
I can
that's
identify
so
with
awesome.
that.
So was your backyard show a sellout?
You know what? I believe that the kids in the neighborhood all did show up. If it was summer, where else were they gonna go? I had the pool.
Yeah.
So there was really, I think that I definitely was able to entice them with the right venue, but they did show
Right.
up.
Right. Yeah, and you had that bonus there. You said, okay,
Yeah,
yeah, like we're gonna hit the pool afterwards. So
exactly.
maybe there'll be some snacks as well. So this quarter, it's not just getting you a show; it's getting you a little bit of fun afterwards as well. So
It was
that
really
was
a
the start of it.
full service, yes.
Yeah, I love that. And so as we get into a little bit further into your story, at 17, you said that your life took a dramatic U-turn, and I
Yes.
don't want to preface it in any way. I want to let you share in your words and how you experienced it.
Well, life happens. It hits us sometimes. We make choices. I was faced with that at 17 and realized I was going to have a baby. And
Hmm. Yeah.
that was a big moment. It was a big moment for the family. I had just graduated high school, so college is now off the
Okay.
table. I really didn't know which direction I was going to go. I was definitely lost already, but this was a very difficult circumstance. It was a very abusive circumstance. And so it
Mm.
was a lot to go through at that time. And we, as a family, and this is not to make any political statements about anybody or anything, this is just my story. And at that
Mm.
time, not having the baby became the option. And so I was next to
Mm.
go into the operating room for this procedure at 17. And they came out and told me that I wasn't pregnant. And I'm proud to tell you
Wow.
right now that that child, that son is almost 32 years old and amazing. So there was a
Yeah.
plan and a purpose for his life and for my life. And that's really where our story began, was with Ryan.
Yeah. Now you said something there, and again, just share with what you're comfortable. But it was kind of an abusive sort of situation. That word came out, and why I ask about that is because I see someone who's very confident, very polished, very professional, and so on. You know, and people might wonder, well, how do you find yourself in that kind of circumstance?
Oh, I was a totally different, naive young girl then. I didn't know any different. And I lived in this
Yeah.
little happy bubble that I didn't realize that people could do that. I had lived in this very
Yeah.
sheltered
Okay.
little world. So I had not, and I went to a small private school. So
Mm.
everybody was always on their best behavior. And here I was brought into this situation that was, I wasn't even able to recognize the signs. I wasn't able to identify. I didn't have the skills and the tools I have today. Who does at 17?
Yeah.
Looking
Yeah.
back, of course, I can completely identify all of this, but at the time, I didn't have that ability, and the rest is the story.
Yeah, yeah. And so, you're faced with this idea of, do we terminate the pregnancy or not? And thankfully, that decision was kind of made for you.
It was.
And so, when you got told that, oh, you're not pregnant, like what feelings did you have?
I knew I was. My mom knew I
Okay,
was, and I knew that this was a sign that this child was supposed to live. I knew
okay,
it.
and yeah, that is quite something. And of course, your son has become like quite a wonderful blessing in your life. Maybe
And
the biggest blessing in your life.
then there's 3 more behind him then, so I had a whole
Yeah,
gaggle later, but that same child went on to be my lead guitar player, started playing for me at 17. He was 17 when he
yeah.
started playing for me full time and toured with me and still is my lead guitar player to this day.
Which is absolutely incredible. So now you're a single mom, and you had all these big plans and dreams. Did it feel like they were sort of kind of crashing down around you, or what did you sort of feel like? Like just after your son was born. I know I'm a parent now too, and I'm like, boy, life. I had my first kid at 39, so I did it in the
Oh my
opposite
goodness,
direction.
I was, like, done by then.
Yeah,
Everybody was half
yeah.
grown by that point.
I
You
went I
know,
went
it's
and traveled the
interesting,
world instead.
I have one of those I have a resilient mind. And I don't
Mhm.
have a doom and gloom mentality to begin with. So I'm like, okay, this is what we're doing now. Let's make it work. And I'll
Yeah,
go find new opportunities. And I found opportunities that allowed us to continue to navigate and shift and move through. I ended up marrying young then and having several
yeah,
more children. And so that
yeah.
was a beautiful, wonderful time. But I don't remember feeling that my life was over. There was this, whoa, it was
Okay,
just, this is what we're doing. And how do I retool? And I do have that ability in me and have
okay.
been doing so ever since when life hits like that to say, how do I retool? How do I take
Yeah.
these circumstances? And I'll give you an example because I wanted to sing and perform, but now I have this child to take care of. My job that I got when he was a baby was for a restaurant that you had to audition to get the position. So not only was I waiting tables at
Yeah,
19 because that's what I had to do, I was wearing a
yeah,
costume, entertaining, performing, and it was a high-end dinner-only restaurant. So I made more money in tips and I made
yeah.
incredible friendships that I still have to this day with Bobby McGee's. If anybody remembers that chain in the 80s, it was the place to be. So instead of just saying,
Okay.
okay, I have to wait tables, well, I'm going to go wait tables with the funnest, most amazing coolest place, and I'm going to make it work.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
opportunity opened up doors for the next one, and it just kept moving throughout the years.
Yeah, and so you speak about having a resilient mind, and do you feel like this is something you were born with, or something that you were sort of guided into through, parenting? Because I think people wonder, like, well, how do I have that, or how do I get that, or is it something I can acquire?
I love my parents. So I'm sorry if you're listening to this, but I don't think it came from there. I think I was born with it. And maybe there's an ancestor or something before. Maybe it's just my sheer fight or flight abilities that just say, I can fight through this. I can find a way. I, I tend to look at the positive. Like, it'll work out.
Mm,
It's okay. We'll find something. That'll be all right. I don't
yeah.
panic. I just don't have a panic personality. I have a very light personality. So that didn't come from my nuclear family. They still can't figure me out after all these years. They just roll with it now. Oh, what is she up to? Nobody's ever been
Yeah.
able to figure me out. And I'm glad I beat to my own drum. And thank goodness.
Mm-mm.
Could have had a different
Yeah.
outcome.
Well, as a fellow black sheep in my family, a little bit there, I can empathize with that a little bit. So yeah, you decide, okay, I'm gonna wait tables. Found this cool restaurant. You got to be a performer there, so you kind of got to indulge in that a little bit as well. Where did that take you to next? You mentioned like getting into sales. What and sales for a lot of people like people have a tricky kind of relationship with it, because this is, depending on how they see it, and maybe what their relationship with money is and relationship with value is,
Right.
and so on. So you decide, or what prompted you to look for maybe a position in sales?
Well, first I went ahead and I actually married young. I had
Mhm,
met and
mhm.
married young and had a whole gaggle of more children in my
Right,
20s.
right.
So that's what I did. That's what
Yeah.
that
Oh,
was it.
okay.
Whole slew. I've got my little mini basketball team. I've actually have
That's
my whole
amazing.
band. I have a whole band of musicians.
That's
Then I
incredible.
went through a divorce, and that's
Yeah.
when I said, okay, I need to find that big girl job. I missed those 20s. I didn't go to
Ah, okay.
college.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't have those formative years to create those relationships. And I was so grateful because I was meeting people, shaking hands, and trying to figure out what industry I was going to insert myself into without the education or experience to do so. And it was
Yeah,
this
yeah.
one woman that came into my life, and it was, an accident that I met her, and it was no accident. I had
Right.
somebody
Yeah.
hand me a Post-it note that said, "You're tenacious. Make this phone call. See if they'll hire you. Tell them you have experience. I vouched for you already." It was a really cool
Wow.
moment. So I called, I was given an interview. I meet this amazing woman who herself was a single mom with 3 kids and a cancer survivor in her 30s. And she said, "You're tenacious. I'm going to take a chance on you." And she brought me into the world of wholesale mortgage and sales, and she taught me everything she knows. And at that moment,
Oh.
I didn't know what I was doing. It was highly competitive in the early 2000s in Southern California. Irvine and, and,
Mm, mm,
and Orange County was like the hub of the mortgage industry, and I was going to get
right.
eaten alive. She said, "I'm here. I will do this with you." And I was so thankful for the opportunity she presented for myself, for me to provide for my children, for my home, that I succeeded really for her first before myself. I knew I
Yeah.
needed to show gratitude, and the only way I was going to do that was to succeed because she put her name on me. And we're
That's
still
that's
friends to
incredible.
this day. She is still in my life and she's still amazing, Liz Montez. She believed in me. And that's literally that decision and that person taking me on then is the foundation for everything I do today. That
Well, that's
started it. That was
incredible.
it. That was it.
And yeah, and I mean, it sounds like someone I should have on the show to interview. She sounds like an amazing human being, which is awesome. There's a couple little details that you touched on there. I just wanted to swing back, and again, I'll only show what you're comfortable. But you mentioned like marrying young, so you'd had this, you had your son,
Mhm.
and I gather that the father of your first son is not in the picture, but you
No.
you met somebody else, and then you said you ended up having a basketball team. Does that mean you had four more, so you have five
Yes.
total, or
I have four
okay?
total. Four total. Four
Oh,
total.
4 total. Okay, so you're shorthanded, but close enough to a basketball team. Yeah. Now, how did that relationship come about? And like, maybe what did you see in this
We met while
individual?
I was waiting tables, and it was
Okay.
it was great, and we're still great friends to this day. I was just young,
Mhm,
and as anything else, it just we ended up ending it probably too soon. I'm not sure, but it all worked out. We're great parents with the kids, and we're
mhm, mhm.
great good friends. No drama in my life whatsoever. Just
Yeah,
just always a blessing, and everybody was able to move on and grow. He's been married now for a lot of years to a wonderful woman. We're friends. It's great. So that's not an issue.
yeah. Well, that's really good to hear, because I think not a lot of stories necessarily have that to it. You just recognize that maybe we came together at a young age. We weren't
Yeah.
really the right fit necessarily, and kind of grew apart and decided, okay, but
And I
we're
knew
going
I
to
had
do.
wings. I knew I had to spread my wings. I knew I was going to end up touring and wanting to go out there and do big things. I just knew it.
Mhm,
Something in me
mhm.
was just fighting to get out of the cocoon, and I take full responsibility for that.
Okay, yeah. So it was this tenacious desire to accomplish your dreams that said, you know what, I can't actually be restrained with it. So you got this gaggle of kids. You now are in this sort of high pressure mortgage industry
Yes.
and sort of sales position that you're kind of learning on the fly. But you have this wonderful mentor.
I had
Did
a
you say Liz?
calculator taped to my steering wheel so that I could drive and calculate the mortgage rates and the add-ons. I mean, this was flip phone and earpiece.
Yeah,
This was a
yeah,
great time, but I made it happen. And I
yeah.
put "made it happen" on my license plate. It was amazing.
That is
True
that's
story.
absolutely yeah. And what were you driving?
I started in a minivan,
Yeah,
and
makes
within
sense.
a couple months, I had my little Lexus that I was able to drive around and use for sales, and it was wonderful. With car seats in the back, we made it work.
Oh, that's awesome. And so during this time, because it sounds like this is probably a fairly busy profession to be in. Like it's competitive, it's high demand. I don't know if it was long hours. You had to be like available. You know, are you solo parenting at this time as well?
Yes, I was solo parenting, and it was long hours for everybody else, but I had to be done by the time the daycare closed. And so I had to do my work twice as fast and twice as efficient. And so I learned how to be very strategic, to exactly identify my target clients, be strategic on
Mhm.
asking for that business because I had to do it quicker. I couldn't stay after and do dinner with clients and happy hour with clients. I had children to take care of, I had a home to run, and I had to learn how to be
Yeah.
very effective in what I did.
Yeah, how do you because how do you balance that? Because I think this is probably a question that comes up, you know, because we could say, well, I just sort of made it work and I just kind of balanced it. But some people would be wondering, okay, you got four kids, you
Mhm.
know, and you had daycare, but you know, you got to get up early in the morning, get these kids all ready, get them out to where they're going to go. Then you get into this high pressure job that's like go go go, get all this, you know, make all this stuff happen. Come home now, switch hats. Now you're mom again, and juggling that and sort of switching
And I
back and
was
forth.
singing in a band on the evenings and
Right.
weekends that the kids went with me. I was also singing at all the concerts in the park throughout Southern California, and we made it
Okay.
happen. The kids would be
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
blanket in front. We'd bring the picnic, they'd eat, I'd perform. It was a blast. I always still had music integrated in. And you're right.
Yeah.
I just had that mindset of saying, we can do this. Why not? I always have a why not? I can do that. We'll make that work. And I also
Mhm.
don't come from a place of like stress and like, oh, this is hard. I'm like, we've got this. And so I made it fun for the kids too. We just have with
Mm.
this, yeah, we can do that. It's all right. All right, everybody hustle, hustle, hustle. Count of three, we're out the door. Woohoo. But I wasn't mean or stressed. So I think that
Yeah, yeah,
bringing joy and excitement, and they know there was never a dull moment with me. They'll tell you that to this day. They're all grown. There's
yeah, yeah,
never a dull moment with me, but they know they can count on me.
yeah, which is absolutely fantastic. So of those kind of like early days and doing concerts in Southern California and maybe you had a little bit of an established name locally. Is there a particular concert that sticks out for you that you remember playing in, or is there something that happened that you think back now and you kind of laugh and you go, that was a little bit crazy?
When I went on to the bigger professional stages, or at that time in the cover band?
At that
There's
time in the
2
cover
totally
band.
different stages here. The cover band, oh, yes. We were doing a concert in the park, and it was nice. It was a big community, probably 1,000, 2,000 people out there, and my little boy, my youngest son, he kept yelling to the stage, "Can I have ice cream?" And so and I'm like, finally, I realized this poor kid. So I had money in my pocket and I'm throwing money off the stage. And then I'm like, please do
Uh,
not send your children to the front of the stage. It's only for that little blonde one in the front. And so I was throwing money off the stage so that he could go get an ice cream so that I could finish the show. And that one was pretty funny. That
that is
happened frequently.
well, I imagine that maybe that actually I think adds maybe an endearing quality to the performance as well. That hey, here's this mom out here giving her kid ice
Totally.
cream money while
And for
showing up
my
to
kids, they're
perform.
like, "I don't care if you're singing. We don't care what you're doing." I mean, to this day, they're like, "Mom, we don't care that you're on a podcast right now. We have a question," right? So this
Right,
is
right, right.
they don't care. They just need mom. And that is still the
Yeah,
case to this day, even at this stage in my career. It's pretty cute.
yeah, yeah. That's awesome. And so yeah, you're juggling all of this, and the cover band. Were you covering any particular artist or a number of
All
artists?
different songs in country and rock. It was a band called the Silverados. I loved being with them. I was with them for quite a few years, and we just had a great time. And it really allowed me to have a lot more of that live stage performance with big crowds and all
Mm.
family events, which had to be family events because my kids were with me. So it was a wonderful
Right, right.
experience. We're still friends to this day, and just a great. They still perform to this day all over Southern
Wow,
California. They are still together. It's really
that is
neat.
awesome. Yeah. Did you have a favorite song that you enjoyed performing?
Oh, yes. So what my signature song at that time was when I would do Martina McBride's Independence Day, because I could nail I have like a 3-octave range, well, at least I did
Okay,
then,
okay.
and I could
Yeah,
nail that song and the crowd would go wild, and that was it. And
yeah,
anything
yeah.
by Shania, because I love singing the Shania songs.
Good Canadian artist from Timmins, Ontario. That's fantastic. So then, from there, how did you make the transition into was it into solo artist, or what was the
Yes.
transition here? Yeah.
This is where the big shift comes into play, and just like everybody who has a story, you have a choice to make, and it's what we do in that story that changes the next direction of our life. But what shifted was 2007 when the mortgage industry and real estate industry collapsed. So that job,
Mm,
that wonderful sales job that I had that was providing, disappeared overnight. And it also disappeared the exact same week that I had to have a full hysterectomy and went through major surgery with serious complications. So
oof.
I was in recovery at the same time that my career disappeared. And that's when I realized that's it. We can drown or we can survive. So I took the same sales skills, the same business plan that I had for going out and being strategic, and I put it in motion and said, I'm going to go out on tour and ask for the business. Then I'm going to sing full time because there is not another sales job for me to step into. This industry has collapsed and it's the only thing I know. So put it together, went out and asked for the business. And 6 months later, I was opening for Clint Black on a national stage on the 4th of July. And
That's really
I knew
impressive.
that that was going to open up what those next opportunities were, and finding venues that I could have my children with most of the time and making that work. And we went on to the next years having incredible experiences. We would tour in the summer, hit all the fair circuits, and open for some of the biggest names in country music. And in between, I did all veteran and military events and ended up becoming the spokesperson for the American veterans for the state of California for 3 years because I asked for the business. They wanted me
Mhm.
performing, singing the national anthem, going to the Vets Post and the different ceremonies that they had throughout California. And I needed income. So we came
Yeah.
together and said, let's do an endorsement contract. And they agreed. And it was a fantastic, incredible time. And again, something that I was able to bring my children to. And it
Yeah.
led into 2011, the 10-year anniversary of 9/11. I was asked to sing for the opening ceremony at Dodger Stadium. And so
Wow.
here I am
Okay.
standing on home plate and all of the branches of service coming around as we have that 10-year anniversary. My daughter, she's just a little girl still, my youngest, standing next to me on home plate. And when they came out and presented colors without her even needing to be asked, put her hand over her heart in total reverence. And the cameras were on her and not me. And I'm trying not to cry, but I had instilled this understanding of honoring our veterans and honoring our
Mhm.
country into my children with the work that we did. So creating a business plan and saying, where can I be? How can I overcome this? How can I live in my passions? And how can I still make a living? And we did it.
Yeah. So I think in like a simple phrase, you glossed over a few details there, as we sometimes do. But somebody might hear you say something like, "Well, I didn't have another option, so I went out and I asked for the business." What does that look like? Like if someone was to say, like, "Are there some steps that I could take?" Like, how does someone just go and ask for the business? Where do you even start?
Well, first you identify what it is you're selling or what you're wanting to be doing and find out who in that area is doing it. What like for me, I had to look and see what local concerts are coming up, what venues
Mm,
are paying, who's hiring country music musicians, and
okay.
where are the best opportunities for that. Then putting together a marketing package and a business plan that identifies what they need, not what I need, what they need. And then go and ask for the meeting and present it. Look them in the eyes, shake their hands, and say, I'm the right one for this job. And that's exactly how I did it.
Right, right. So you went and you hunted down venues and concerts and things. Now, are you doing this as a solo artist, as Amy Scruggs now?
Yes. Oh, yes. Completely a solo artist. The cover band, they went on to do their thing. This was me as a
Yeah,
solo
yeah.
artist and brought in musicians, and those changed throughout the years. And by the time my son was 17, he stepped up into that lead spot, 18. And that was a wonderful time. Really wonderful.
And do you think because you were so immersed in music that like your children had a natural affinity for it because they were exposed to it from early age?
I do believe so, and even for my son, it's naturally in him. He can play by ear. He
Mhm.
picked up the guitar on his own. I don't play guitar, so I don't he
Right,
did
right.
that on his own, and he had a natural ability to hear it, feel it, and play it. And my youngest daughter, she's in college now, she can play 5 instruments. So 2 of them
Impressive.
have it instinctively in them, and they are unbelievably talented. And the other 2 boys have their own talents in their specialty, but 2 of them got the music.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So you decide, okay, this is who I'm going to talk to. This is what I'm going to do. I don't necessarily have a band, but I'm gonna figure it. I'm gonna find the people to do that as well. Like, or did you have people lined
I
up?
booked I booked an entire tour without a band, and I knew we'll figure it out. I'll make it happen. And then I found the song. I met up with a song that I wanted to record. I recorded a song that was for the veterans coming home. The lead singer,
Mhm.
the guy that wrote it, Dave Adams, he came on. I said, "Will you be my lead singer?" And he goes, "Absolutely." I said, "I already have a tour booked, and I don't have a band. Can you put one together?" And he did in 2 weeks.
Wow,
He did.
that's quite
I
something.
believe in putting it out there and asking
Yeah.
for it. Because then when that yes comes in, okay, now I'll find the details. If I had waited and said, I need to make sure I have the
Right.
perfect team behind me and then go ask for the business, it would have been too late. I said
Yeah.
yes to the jobs and then figured out how I was going to staff it. And it worked.
Yeah. I think that's a fantastic lesson because so many of us I think just sit back and go, well, I have to get all my dots connected before I do it, you know. And I think even with podcasting, at this point, I'm now in the top 5% globally, which is pretty cool, and I'm pushing
Congrats.
to crack the top 1% here as my stretch goal for this year. But I started podcast guesting just by accident, and then people kept asking, "Well, when are you going to start your own podcast?" I was like, "Well, I don't know what I'm going to talk about." But I just went ahead and kind of started it, and it's grown and it's evolved into what it is today, which is, of course, sharing these amazing and inspirational stories. And so,
Yes.
where does I guess Nashville and like the bigger, broader country music industry factor into this? Because did you start to establish a name and a reputation and whatnot? Like, do people come calling for you, or did you still have to go? I'm going to go kick down some more doors over in Nashville.
Well, partnering with the veterans was a huge success
Oh
plan.
yeah, yeah,
First of all, it helped my passions, but everywhere we went, I would make sure that I booked on the local TV show and the local radio shows so that if I'm performing in that city or that town, I was my own PR. I would make sure we had newspaper articles and that I was meeting the radio station that was appropriate for that show and also that I was going to be on TV or performing on television if that was a possibility. So putting a press plan together while we were out doing it made a significant difference. And this was before I could use YouTube videos or Reels or streams or
yeah,
Instagram.
yeah, yeah.
Facebook was only for finding my high school friends. This was a
Right, right,
time when I
right.
did not have social media and digital tools to do
Yeah.
this. It was town to town, handshake to handshake, picking up and calling ahead of time to book myself on these things. And a lot of times I would actually use a different name so that I was representing myself as my manager. Mary. Mary did an incredible job. Mary booked a lot of great things and got some great press for me because that credibility
I-
had to be there. Mary would handle the contracts and the rider requirements, and we made it happen. And then I would
that
get there, and I was the artist.
they didn't recognize the
Mary still
voices
works with me,
is
by the way.
right, right, right. I
Nobody
have
ever even noticed. You deal with different people when you get there. It's like nobody ever even puts two and two
oh,
together. Doesn't matter.
oh,
Got the job done, right?
that is so fantastic. I love the creativity, ingenuity of that. Who would have
See, I
thought? And
connect the dots as we're going. You were saying connecting the dots before you start something. I connect the dots as I'm doing it every time. Like,
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
figure
yeah.
that out. Okay,
Like,
there's a stumbling block. I'll get around it.
so there's just this element of confidence in your abilities, which I think is really, really fantastic. I'm doing
Especially when you have
a web.
mouths to feed. There's hunger too.
Yeah,
There's no isn't an
yeah.
option.
Yeah, so you're going to figure this out. There's quite something about I think just motherhood in general. I watch my wife with our little boy, and it's something that's absolutely remarkable to witness
Mhm.
and see. There's like a certain drive um, yeah. I'm just kind of at a loss for words when I think about motherhood. I think it's such an amazing and the most valuable I guess profession, if you will. It
Yeah,
goes
I don't
beyond
know
that.
anything
So
different. Since I was
yeah,
18, I don't know anything different. So it's really
yeah.
interesting. I didn't have another life before that.
So, and I think what's really interesting about what you described here, that like you went and knocked on doors, shook hands, all this kind of stuff, and I wonder if sometimes people might think, well, we're past that all now. Now we just like send a message on LinkedIn or whatever. And I think, man, there is still something about going and meeting people in person, shaking hands, and you establish that as a practice. And social media can maybe augment that, or digital connection can augment that. I mean, look, we've never met in person, and we're having a fantastic conversation here.
Right.
But
But
I
we're
think,
utilizing the video technology so we can see each other. You can see intent.
yeah,
You can see my expressions. You can feel me. You can see my body language and my mannerisms. It allows us to
mhm,
effectively communicate as if we were in the same room. So what we do is we take these digital tools, we level it up, get a lot more comfortable at these type of face to face, and then we see how our network expands.
yeah, which is pretty impressive. And so, and I love the PR stuff. And I was like, when I get back home, I'm over in Australia for a few months at the time of recording this. My wife's from Australia, and so we're escaping the brutally cold winter in Alberta, Canada. And so,
I don't blame you.
yeah, yeah. Which, I mean, running my own business is kind of handy in that way. I still work over here, but
Mhm.
I get to set my own schedule. I work in the mornings, take the afternoons off to be with my boy, so I get to be a parent as well, in that way, which I love. But um, so you opened a lot of doors and you started making a name for yourself. Um, did you have like was there a hit song that like came up out of this, or
Yes, "Coming Home." That was our song that was the
yeah,
theme song for the American veterans. Dave Adams wrote it.
right,
He's the
right,
one that ended up putting the band together and for the
yeah,
tour.
yeah,
Dave Adams is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful writer, amazing musician. He's still up all over touring all over Northern California and up into Reno, Nevada all the time, but he's
mm,
incredible, and "Coming Home" was the anthem for the veterans. There was a lot of them coming home at that time, 2009, 10, and
yeah,
11. We
that's
had a
right.
lot of
Yes, yeah,
veterans coming home, and so we were able to really honor them with this song, but at the same time, it was the anthem for our Vietnam veterans who did not get the same honoring when they
mm,
came home. And so we really dedicated this as well to the Vietnam veterans. And there were a lot of those that were involved with AMVETS, which we were at events constantly. So it definitely threaded its way through of us being able to go out and spend the time basically saying thank you for a living. And it was incredible. And I'm known for singing the national anthem. I sing it everywhere. I still do. So it was a
yeah, yeah,
really incredible time of being able to do that.
yeah.
And then we would
Which is
still rock out and we do all our rock songs and we do country and we
yeah,
would just
yeah,
put on a really fun show when we had the ability to do that.
yeah. Which is absolutely amazing. And then see, your son came into the band at 17,
Yes.
and so has he been a part of your band for 15 years, give or take, if I'm doing my math
Yes.
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and he had to start shuffling gear as a guitar tech. He was
Okay.
handling the truck, the trailer, the merchandise. He paid his dues, and then the guys would work with him, and he'd play guitar, and he'd be at all the rehearsals, and then he'd start stepping into a little bit of spot, and then he really stepped in alongside Dave and I by 2009, and he did an
Yeah.
incredible job. I mean, when he was 19, he and I together were on a stage for 20,000 opening up for Trace Adkins. And it was
Yeah.
such
Wow.
an honor to stand next to him and to do that show. But also, we have stood next to each other in hospital rooms at the veterans hospitals on
Mhm.
Christmas when there's servicemen and they're injured, wounded, can't go home. And we have said thank you to so many of our military and veteran community together, side by side. And so we have a bond in that words can't describe.
Yeah. Well, what are some of the, because this is a very remarkable story, and you're very positive, and you just have a very can-do attitude. Were there any moments along the way in this journey where something really kind of like knocked you for a loop that was really difficult to bounce back from, or kind of caught you off guard?
Yes, in 2011, we were singing full time and doing all that, but it still wasn't enough to make all the ends meet. I think I volunteered myself to
Mm.
death, but we
Right,
lost our
right,
home.
right.
We lost our home.
Okay.
And so the kids and I were really blown apart into pieces at that time. It was now what do we do? And it's interesting because I can look back now and see that was really a critical, critical, difficult moment because my daughter and I then had to relocate. I went ahead and went back into sales. I took a job in San Diego so that we could start over. The boys stayed with their dad. So it tore us apart as a family at that time. And
Mm.
then 3 months
Oof.
later, our bass player dropped dead of a heart attack. So had we been out
Mm.
on tour, imagine, I mean, it was already devastating, but it happened right after and we were okay. And so I pulled off music for a while because I had to grieve. There was a lot of loss there. I needed to rebuild. But what I'm so grateful for is that start over here in San Diego opened up door after door after door as I started working with sales teams again in communication. That opened up to TV hosting. All of a
Yeah.
sudden doors and relationships started opening up to what I do today. Had we not lost the home, I don't believe I would have been so bold to make that big of a move. And it really is incredible how it ended up turning out. It doesn't mean it was any less painful. But again, what we do and the decisions we make in that pain can completely shape the direction of where we're going and the outcome.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost, it's not that we would seek out these moments of rock bottom, but I think they're an inevitable factor in life. There is no easy street in
Mhm.
life. And when we come to terms with that reality that you know what, like life's going to kick us in the junk and punch us in the gut, like it's going to happen. I think we're not so surprised when it does. And you'd been through adversity before,
Mhm.
and because of that, I believe you would had a resilience that was fostered out of going through these previous challenges you faced,
Yes.
where you go, I don't know what the answer is, but I know that I can get through this.
Yes. I have the skills. You can take it all away from me, but I have the tools and the skills and the fight in me to go do it again. And that's what I've learned. We lost everything. And we lost
Yeah.
our best friend. Fred was an incredible part of our life. He wasn't just our bass player, he was family. And he was only
Yeah.
40 when he had a heart
Mhm.
attack suddenly. So we had loss. And to turn around and see what it means to us now, the bonds that we have, the kids and I are great. We're very close. And
Yeah.
then when I watched my youngest daughter graduate with honors and get accepted to UCSD a year early, this was where she was supposed to be. That was what was meant and laid out for her. And what a joy. I would suffer through all of it again to see the successes that my children have today, not just what I'm able to today, but where their life is as well.
Yeah, and then so you ended up, going on to TV, and you spent a lot of time on stage, but and maybe you've done some radio and stuff, but now you go into, like, hosting a TV show. It
Yes.
seems like it's a little different. And
It
how
was
did
a
you
lot
land
different.
that?
There's no question. That is a lot different, especially sitting in the hosting seat, because then it's my
Yeah.
job to pull the best out of you. It was my job
Mm,
to help every one of those professionals that I interviewed, and it was hundreds of interviews. And these interviews, and I want you to think about this for a second, they were all only between 4 and 6 minutes. I had to help them tell their story in 6 minutes or less, or promote their business, or share what their outreach was. So there was no time to get to the point. If they would say, hi Amy, thanks so much for having me here, yeah, so they've just lost 20 seconds out of their 4 minutes and it was tragic. So you really have to
yeah.
know your talking points at that point. And for me as a host, to get right in on that introduction, get right to those speaking points, to know what it is that they need to be sharing and get it out of them so that it brought relevance. That was the learning
Mhm.
curve. And at first, boy, I had to figure some of that out, but once I got in that zone, absolutely loved it. Loved
Yeah.
every minute of it. That's what I was meant to do.
I mean, I think this is why I love podcasting, because it gives us the space and the freedom to explore in just a little bit more detail than we have there. But I think that's a remarkable skill. Did you coach the people you were interviewing, like, beforehand, and be like, hey, this is how it's
Yes.
going to go? Like,
Because
do you
I
have
would
a
notice, that's what started the coaching, because I would notice, okay, this person's not okay. They're fumbling. They're not sure what they want to say. There was a lot of times they'd be like, is this how I look? Is this how I sound? And so it was my job to
right,
say,
right,
got
right.
you. All right, tell me what your three main things you want to make sure you share. I will pull that out of you. Don't worry. And so really helping
Yeah.
them be comfortable, eye contact, letting them feel my body language, leaning into them. So there was almost this dance and this rhythm. And it made a tremendous difference with the interview if
Yeah.
they would really lean into me like that and let me lead them. It really was like a
And
dance.
that's amazing. And actually, I think what a remarkable gift, kind of, to be sharing with people, to like, this is like a shared experience where I'm going to take you through this, and
Yes.
even though the actual time on camera is a very short window of time, there's a little bit of a transformation that takes place in just that moment, because they would realize something about themselves as well. And it's because of the coaching that you did. And is that what ultimately led you into what you're doing today?
Completely. Because I was starting to coach. I was still hustling and working, and I was the face and voice for Mutual of Omaha. So I was writing their scripts, hosting 4 other shows, producing. I mean, I was just completely knee deep in that when the pandemic hit.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
went, okay, wait a minute. And I had been coaching on the side because so many professionals would reach me and say, hey, will you work with me a little bit? So the crafting of the coaching I would do was definitely there, but I still was full time in everything else I was doing. In 2020, as we all know, March 13th, that was gone. And I thought,
Yeah.
what a beautiful opportunity as I watched the entire world go on camera. I said, this is what I do. This is what I help with. This is no longer just business professionals trying to be on TV. This is everyone. This is teachers. This is support staff. This is everyone trying to communicate. I'm here. let me help you. And that's when I literally right away said, I need to put some of this pen to paper. I need to reach out to my network and bring in some great influence and co-writers in this and say, let's put something together to help professionals of all industries. Because I saw this shift happening as it was happening. I'm like, this is not my first rodeo. I've been through some big shifts, and I'm going to be ahead of the curve, and I'm going to help those that would like to be helped. And it's amazing to see what has transformed and where I am today. What I didn't know, that I was going to have the blessing of being able to record a new album in the middle of the pandemic as well.
Yeah.
Opportunities that I had dreamed of my entire life came about during the pandemic. See, I got my butt kicked in the recession of 07-08.
Yeah.
That one was bad. This one provided blessing, and I'm grateful for it.
That's amazing. And so you went and recorded this album. Did you? We've hardly talked about Nashville, which is great because I'm just loving your story here. But did you go and record there, or did you record in California?
Oh, it was Nashville. I was
Yeah.
called back to Music City, and it was the greatest call of my life. I went, oh my gosh, we're doing it. And I was able to have a Zoom with the producer, Fred Mullen, and he said, okay, I'll do it. And remember, this is a time when they had the open time. Musicians weren't touring. They were available.
Right.
The songwriters were thrilled to be pitching music. This was a time when that industry wanted business. And I wanted to do a new album. And so we said, let's do it. Let's do it. So we recorded in May of 2021 and released in January of 2022.
So I think this leads to just two more questions before we wrap up. And I thank you so much for sharing your time with me today. It's been truly a pleasure getting to know your story. One is this idea of songwriters. And, I guess a lot of artists don't necessarily write their own music. And sometimes people may be critical of that for some reason. But what is kind of your experience with songwriters, and why might songwriters choose that avenue as opposed to performing their own, I guess, lyrics and what they write?
I am so thankful for the songwriters. That isn't my skill. That was not my forte. I'll perform it. You got it. I'll take it. So I am so grateful to go through the process. The publishers and the song pluggers, they come together and they pitch these to labels and to artists. And so I sat through pitch sessions. We had 1,000 songs pitched to us for a 5-song project.
Wow.
So we went through that to say, okay, what's my message? What am I looking for? And you go through and you listen and you're looking for lyrics, you're looking for melody, you're seeing if this vibes with what I want to represent. It was a 6-month process to choose. And we didn't even choose the last one till we landed in Nashville the day before going into the recording studio. Again, I connect the dots as I go. I'm like, we'll figure it out. It's going to reveal itself. It's going to. And I'm so thankful. That is the one that we actually just released this last week, called Something to Believe In. And it's really fun to know the story behind the songs, to be able to meet some of the writers, to be able to thank them online. It creates a beautiful relationship. Songwriters want their songs cut. A lot of songwriters aren't necessarily performers. Doesn't mean they want to be a frontman. That's a whole different skill set. But there's incredible writers that are just, they want to write, they want to write, they want to write. And we need them. And it's a beautiful pairing.
I love that. And thank you for just like sharing it in that way, because I think it shines a wonderful light on it. And I mean, I love music. I don't perform nearly at that sort of level. But I love music, and I love that there's a different type of artistry in there, and that you are giving voice to their artistry.
Yes.
And I think that's really what we want maybe people to take away from that. So,
right. It would be like if every screenplay writer wanted to be the lead in their own movie. Well, that's ridiculous. They want Brad Pitt, right? So a lot of the writers, that is their talent. That's their forte. And what a beautiful combination. Now, yes, there's artists that write their own songs, but a lot of artists that write and record and have hits with their own songs still record music from other writers.
Mm-hmm. So now you've likely had the opportunity to meet and connect with a number of, probably numerous, famous people of varying degrees of fame, notoriety, all the rest of it. Who has been the most, I guess, surprising or interesting person that you've encountered?
Oh, the most interesting.
Or maybe
Jack Gutman. Jack
Okay.
Gutman is a World War II veteran who survived Normandy on the beach at 17. And then went on to Okinawa. And he's still alive today, still sharing his story, has overcome PTSD, and is quite a celebrity on CNN, CNBC, all the national news. They always bring Jack on still to this day. But you want to talk about someone that has a story, that is a true hero and celebrity. And that was the greatest interview I've ever done. He is still a friend to this day. And I think the biggest celebrity I've ever met.
Yeah. Wow. So he'd be in his 90s now.
Yes, 97.
Yeah. Oh man. Man, I'd love to interview him too if I could, because he'd be the oldest guest I've ever had on. But then that'd be amazing. He sounds like an incredible story. I served 6 years in the Navy, and so
Oh, thank you.
I have quite a respect. And actually, when I went down to San Diego, because I was in the Canadian Navy, but on the West Coast, but we would go down to San Diego and play. I don't say play war games, but we do exercise and drills with the U.S. Navy. And then when we go into San Diego, we could go into the zoo and to the aquarium or down there, and we would get like a hero ticket, they called it.
Yes.
And so I didn't have to pay for admission. I just show my ID,
Right.
and it's like,
Right.
yeah, I love that. That was so fantastic. Well, Amy, what a story. I absolutely love it. There's so many more questions we could ask, but I do want to be respectful of your time. For those who've been listening to your story, if you could just give them sort of one piece of wisdom, what would you like people to take away from hearing your story?
To take the limits off. And when your story is unfolding in front of you and it's not the pleasant one at the time, those decisions you make, picture yourself out of it, connect the dots as you go along, but don't quit, don't give up, and don't choose failure. It's just not an option. Take the limits off and realize I can do this. And the way to get out of it will come in front of you right when you need it.
I love that. Amy, thank you so much for your time today. It's truly been a pleasure.
It was an honor to be with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Between the Before and After. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave a review, because that helps this podcast to reach and inspire more people. I love exploring the stories that take place between the before and after, the powerful experiences that shape who we become, and I love human potential. I love the possibilities that lie within us. So whatever you may be up against, I hope these stories inspire you, because if you're still here, your story's not done yet, so keep moving forward.